All right. Thank you for joining the Topicality lecture. We'll try and make this as clean and quick as possible. We'll also have another extended lecture that will go into more detail for topicality. And I recommend watching these over and over and over as many times as possible so that you can memorize the terms and learn how to speak about topicality when it comes to various things. So, what is topicality? Topicality is an off case position offered by the negative in every debate round, never the affirmative. Topicality is a stock issue. It is an a priori issue, which means it's actually the first stock issue that must be addressed. Now, oftentimes it's not, but for us, when you are on the affirmative and your opponent offers a topicality position, you must answer that first. Likewise, if you're on the negative, we ask you to run your topicality positions first, because if the affirmative team is not topical, then there's no real reason for us to continue with the round. Now, we will, because you don't know what the judge is thinking and considering about your topicality position. However, you must run that first because that's going to set the terms for the debate, and it's actually going to establish a lot of credibility for one or two of the debaters. So it's very important that you flow topicality. It's an off-case position, so you're going to need a separate sheet of paper. All right. And who runs topicality? It's run by the negative. The affirmative never runs topicality. They always answer it. The negative always runs topicality, and it must be run in the first negative constructive speech. It cannot be run in any other speech. Topicality is structured in a very specific way. If you do not structure topicality in a very specific way, you may lose topicality in a very obvious topicality win for the negative, or the affirmative can lose by not answering line by line or answering all of the arguments that are offered by the negative. So we offer a very specific structure, and that comes with 4 requirements. And it begins with A, the violation. And so this is going to be written out. It's going to be typed out on your laptop. It's going to be just like all of your other evidence. You're going to have to pre-flow it if you're in the negative. If you're in the affirmative, you're going to have to flow as you're listening to the debate, as your opponent's offering it in the round. And it begins with A, the violation. And this is usually referring to the plan text only. And it just states that the affirmative is non-topical because of these specific reasons. All right. And we'll go over plenty of examples. But for example, our agent of action is the U.S. federal government and our immigration resolution. And if someone were to use the nation of Russia or the United Nations to actually implement the plan, well, that would be obviously not topical. And you would refer to that language in the plan text in the violation to say the affirmative uses the United Nations or Russia as the agent of action, and that is clearly outside the bounds of the resolution. Okay, so anytime you write a plan, it has to meet all of the words in the resolution. It has to take an action. It has to be the agent of action. So those nouns and verbs have to be adhered to. And you're going to get into all of those debates. One of the debates that you will also get into is that of the definitions. All right. So if you do violate a term in the resolution, then it is up to the negative in their topicality position to tell you what that word means. And so if you say that they have violated the term for U.S. federal government, then the negative team must offer a definition. It can either be a field contextual definition, which is not preferred. It should be a specific definition from qualified sources, either a dictionary, it could be from Black's Law Dictionary. And when we get into the definitional debates, you'll see why you prefer certain definitions based on the type of debate you're having, the subject, or based on the type of topicality position you are running. You must offer a definition. The affirmative must answer that. We'll get to that in a minute. Second, that definition is then going to be weighed through standards, all right? And the entire topicality position, the violation as well, is going to be weighed through standards. That's going to determine for the judge how they are going to see who is actually winning the topicality position, whose position is preferred. Those standards can be numerous, or you can have one. We prefer that you have several. Some of the most common are increased education. So if the affirmative is non-topical, one of our standards is we want to increase education because they're not topical. They decrease education. So you should prefer our definition and hold them as a non-topical and then vote against them. Another standard is fairness. Like some negative debaters believe that it's unfair for the affirmative to write a non-topical case because they've prepared for topical cases and they have no way to prepare for a plan that's not really out there based upon an author advocate who's adhering to the resolution. So that makes the round unfair. They will ask the judge to vote against them for that. And then you have 1 or 2 other standards. Sometimes you may have 5. Sometimes I would not have too many standards because you're still going to have that debate. But if you're really good at topicality, or if it's something that's really obvious or egregious, or if that's your only position that you have as a negative, then you can create more standards and hope that your opponent kind of drops some of those and doesn't answer them, or just doesn't really know how to address it. And lastly, you have voters. Voters is really important. You can't run a topicality position without asking for the D, the most important thing, and that is to get the judge to vote for your position. And the typical reason why it's a voter is because of the greenhouse rules, that topicality is an a priori position. You must be topical. And just for tradition and for the rules, topicality comes first and it's a voting issue. All right. So after you've offered that position, it's in the round and it's up to the affirmative to answer that. The affirmative must answer topicality. All right. We'll have a specific lab and workshop and another video on how to answer topicality in itself. But right now we must just go over how to do it briefly. The first thing the affirmative does is you have to think about it as a whole. Even as you're writing the case, prepare cases that are topical. All right. Don't try to be what we call squirrely and write a case no one has evidence to, or to try and trick people, because generally those are non-topical. All right. When in the round, when you stand up, obviously, the first thing you're going to do is say, hey, I want to answer the topicality, and you answer it in the order it was delivered. So you start with A, the violation. You're going to tell us why you don't violate the words in the resolution. B, you're going to demonstrate that by showing us how you are able to meet or offer counter definitions. So if the affirmative says that the United States federal government will act, and they're claiming that you're not the United States federal government, you need to demonstrate that you do meet their definition of the United States federal government, or offer a different definition to show why you meet your preferred definition, and use the standards to show why your definition is preferred. All right. So we'll get into some really good debates here about words, about definitions, about the meaning of words, about alternative meanings, ambiguity, things like that. It'll be really fun, but you can also get really lost on the standards debate. All right. The main thing you need to do on the affirmative is answer the violation, answer the definition. Do you meet the definition? Offer a counter definition. Go straight to the standards, answer every standard, and then offer your counter standards. All right. So tell us why those standards from offered by the negative are okay and you agree with them, or why they're unfair and you have your own standards, or you can do both. Okay. The last thing you must do, though, is tell us why this is not a voting issue. And you can also call it a reverse voting issue. Now, there are different schools of thoughts about the standards and, what they mean, and the voters and what they mean. Right now, I want you to just do what we're asking you to do on topicality so that we can learn how to offer topicality in the round. You must answer it. Next time, we'll also talk about extra topicality and effects topicality. But right now, you need to know that topicality is an a priori issue. It is a stock issue. It's run by the negative in that first speech. The affirmative must answer every argument on topicality. And if the negative wins topicality, then they don't have to win any other stock issue. The affirmative can win topicality and still must win, obviously, every other issue in the round. Remember, what makes you non-topical is the plain text only. Anything else that's written in the case that talks about solvency or something that may be outside of the resolution, you don't want to look at that to determine topicality. You only look at what we call plain text in a vacuum. So that means if we just looked at plain text only, will they be non-topical? All right, so I didn't want to go over 10 minutes. I think you definitely did that. Topicality is something you should try and run all the time if you can. If you should not run it, don't, because you may lose credibility. But learn how to run topicality in the round, because it's a good way to win, and because you all will be encouraged to write your own debate cases. It's also an excellent way for some of you to be encouraged to write better debate cases and just to do more exploration of the topic and, get some of these grammar and literature debates going. All right, Coach Stacy's out. Have a good time.